Hey everyone, so as part of Mental Health Awareness Week, I thought I'd make a little video about overthinking, anxiety, and the links between them. So, a lot of the time we're told that our overthinking causes our anxiety, but I think it's a two-way street. I think that our anxiety can really feed into our overthinking. You see, there's the experience of anxiety which exists in the body, which is a feeling state, which is sensation-based. And that's going to feed back up into the brain, which is going to register in our prefrontal cortex, in our thinking part of our brain, in our conscious part of our brain, and that's going to try and make sense of that sensation. So naturally, it's going to enter into this game of overthinking in order to rationalize that experience and to solve that perceived problem. But what I suggest in these moments of overthinking, especially before they get to that catastrophizing stage, because when they become catastrophizing, that's when it starts to go all downhill, and that's when it becomes really difficult to manage. And in that state of catastrophizing, usually our central nervous system is either too activated or too shut down to really get out of that experience. So if we're already there, if we're already too activated, or if we're too shut down, it's going to be really, really hard to kind of reprogram our experience in that moment. What we've got to do then is really try and come back into some type of regulation with our nervous system before we try and cognitively solve the problem. So one thing that can help with overthinking is to just be with the overthinking itself. A lot of mental health resources speak about using distraction, disidentification, activities, exercise, embodiment practices. And I think that they have a wonderful place with overthinking. But another side to that is actually if you can be deeply with that experience of overthinking, can you lie back and allow those thoughts to come in? And maybe that's going to be an uncomfortable experience. But if you're able to bear that experience, it might be able to tell you something. It might be able to tell you that experience is not all bad. It might also tell you something that you also need to go through this churning experience of overthinking to sometimes find the answer that you're looking for. You see, your brain is just doing what it's trying to do to solve your problem. And sometimes if you're able to be with that enough, then you might receive the solution. Another thing that I recommend with overthinking is ask yourself the question, is it okay not to know? A lot of us find that really difficult to be with. Can we really be with not knowing? Because not knowing really means we're not in control. But there is actually a huge freedom to not knowing. So if you can think of an experience that you've had where you've entered into a state of anxiety or a state of activation, or even a state of exhaustion because of prolonged overthinking or repetitive overthinking, take a moment just to feel into your body and see what you notice when you tell yourself or ask yourself, is it okay not to know? What happens in your body when you ask yourself that question? I know for me, my heart kind of skips a beat because it's naturally going to go against the tendency of the brain to make sense of. So if you're able to think of overthinking as your brain's experience of making sense of something that's not clear, how about telling your brain to try and make sense of the experience of not knowing instead? And it might be uncomfortable to be in the beginning, but after a little bit of time, that feeling, like all feelings, will pass. And making the experience of the impermanence of our emotions is a really, really valuable thing to do, especially with overthinking, especially with anxiety. So a good way to do that is just to have a little bit of an experiential approach. So I'd like you to think of a time where you, or it could be someone else that you share a space with, and that could be a workspace, or that could be a relationship, might even be a parent figure. So if you've been in that experience of either your own overthinking, which has led to anxiety or even catastrophizing, or somebody else's, what happens in that moment to your body? What happens in that moment to your thoughts? And at what point does it become uncomfortable? Because it doesn't start with being uncomfortable. I think that it starts most of the time with through a space of curiosity and openness. But at what point does it start to move into a territory which our thoughts become almost stronger than us, and it's almost like they take the reins and they're off. So what would it be like to notice that next time that happens? To notice that point in time that your curiosity ceases to become helpful and starts to become uncomfortable or even a little bit harmful. And what would it be like to notice when somebody else is having that experience where their curiosity and their problem-solving skills have actually moved into a territory of being unhelpful and potentially harmful? And maybe not just for them, but also for you, because the nature of our central nervous system is we co-regulate. That's how we're wired. So if someone we share intimate space with or close proximity with is going through a stressful event, naturally we're going to feel that ourselves. And based on our level of awareness and based on our level of coping skills or our ability to regulate our own central nervous system is really going to determine how affected we are and also how helpful we could be for the other person too. So the first part about regulating your nervous system, especially with an anxiety event, is really just paying attention to the body, shifting that awareness from the head, the thoughts, to the throat, to the heart, to the stomach, to the hands. It can be as simple as just like holding the hands and just noticing that sensation of the hands. And just a simple act like that is going to draw your awareness away from the thoughts temporarily to your hands. And that's going to bring you back into your body. And the body might not be the place that you want to be in a state of anxiety. So if that's the case, then you can find something which is external. And we call that a transitional object. So it can be, say, a cup that you feel really, drawn to or you like. So it can be something you hold. And then you use your attention to be placed on the object. So you notice the object and you can describe the object to yourself in that state of anxiety. You can say, okay, it's got a really interesting curvature and it's a mixture of colours and it's got a little bit of coffee in it. It's going to remind me of the kitchen where I made my coffee this morning. Well, and the smells that are associated with that. And where am I now? So you bring yourself back into that moment. And so this will help regulate your nervous system. Movement will help regulate your nervous system too in moments of anxiety. Gentle stretching, gentle turning of the neck from one side to the other, holding the neck just gently, not using any particular force. Also, our eyes have a very, very interesting relationship to our nervous system and the muscles of the eyes. Part of my work is with brain spotting, so I do a lot of work with fixed eye positions in relation to gaining access to the parts of the brain and the body which are storing our experiences. And so the way that works is There are all these different muscles in the eye and around the eye and also in the retina, which have direct neurological links to the brainstem, which is the part of the brain which joins the spinal cord, and also some of the midbrain and the deeper regions of the brain, which are thought to have a lot of access to where we store a lot of our feeling or emotional or what's called implicit kind of response. So not necessarily our thinking part of our brain, which is here at the front. So one way that you can engage some of those parts of the brain using your eyes are some really simple stretching techniques in moments of anxiety. So one of those is just placing your hand on your head, bringing it gently down to your shoulder, and then looking up and just holding that for about 20 or 30 seconds. And you'll notice that when you do this, there's a response in the body. Sometimes that's a swallow, sometimes that's a sigh or a yawn, sometimes that's your shoulders dropping. And we do the other side as well. And again down and look up. And what we're doing here is we're engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. And what this is doing, it's increasing what's called your vagal tone, because there's this huge major nerve which runs down from your brain all the way down through your neck, all the way down past your heart and past your viscera, all into your stomach region. And this nerve, the vagus nerve, is responsible for a huge amount of processes in the body, including breathing, heart rate, digestion, and many, 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 many more. But what's wonderful about this is we can influence that. And over time, if we do those exercises, especially the stretching exercises, we're able to increase our vagal tone. So it's like doing exercise for your central nervous system. And over time, that's going to help you respond better to stress. So what medical professionals know is that people with good vagal tone respond and recover better to stress. And this is what we want, because we can't eliminate stress. So my approach is lean into it, be curious, be incredibly compassionate, and try not to avoid what's happening, because avoidance really compounds what we're going through, and we don't really need that anymore. What we really need to do is we need to lean in and compassionately be with what's affecting us, what's calling for our attention. That doesn't mean we have to pander to it. That doesn't mean we have to become submissive to our thoughts and our emotions. But they're there for a reason. And avoidance is maybe a good temporary fix and something that you might do when you're at work, but over a long period of time that really has quite a few consequences. So these are just a few things that might help you with overthinking, anxiety, and the body. And if you want to have a chat about this or anything else, feel free to get in touch. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.